Welcome to the recorded version of Healthy Nutrition and Mealtime for Seniors, part of the Family Caregiver Support webinar series brought to you by the American Society of Aging and a generous sponsorship from Homestead Senior Care. All right, our presenter today is going to be Lakeland Hogan. Lakeland is a gerontologist and caregiver advocate for Homestead Senior Care. Lakeland works to educate professionals, families, and communities on issues older adults face. Lakeland is a doctoral candidate at the University of Nebraska-Omaha, where she is studying social gerontology. She has a Master of Arts in Social Gerontology and a Master's in Business Administration from UNO. Lakeland has professional experience in the private and public sectors of senior care services. She has worked on special projects for UNO's Department of Gerontology and the local area agency on aging. Lakeland serves as Vice President of the Board of Directors for the Dreamweaver Foundation and is active in the Alzheimer's Association's Walk to End Alzheimer's. Lakeland has a passion for helping others, especially aging adults and their families. And with that, I would like to turn the floor and the presentation over to Lakeland. Thanks for being here today, Lakeland.
Thank you so much, Steve. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday to you all. I hope you're enjoying maybe some of the last days of summer before kiddos get back to school. I know it's a beautiful day here in Omaha, and I hope you also have beautiful weather wherever you are. But today we're going to be talking about nutrition, and that's a topic that we often hear a lot about in magazines, on the internet, in the newspaper, on TV. Let's face it, food and nutrition are big parts of our daily life and our culture. We place a big emphasis on food, diets, grocery shopping, meal planning, dining out. We even have our social events really all centered around food in many cases. And family caregivers caring for an older adult are busy helping out. 83% of family caregivers help with groceries or other errands, and 65% of family caregivers assist with meal preparation. So if we pause to think about it, what's causing our family caregivers to assist with so much meal preparation and grocery shopping? The reality is that aging can present challenges to some older adults which can affect their ability to maintain good nutrition. Chronic illness, declining eyesight or changing taste buds, and even isolation can affect nutrition habits of older adults. So knowing how important good nutrition and proper hydration is to all of us, as a person gets older, it's even more important. Poor diets can have a huge impact on an older adult's quality of life. And as we go through our slides today, you will see why this good nutrition is so important. So to get us started, I wanted to highlight our objectives on this next slide. During today's webinar, we're going to discuss why proper nutrition is so important for older adults. We'll go over the causes of malnutrition and some of the warning signs to look for when working with older adults. Then we're going to talk about tips and techniques to help older adults maintain proper nutrition, including the importance of companionship at mealtime and nutritional guidelines for older adults. And finally, we'll talk about ways to manage dietary concerns. There are a few specific chronic illnesses that can have additional impact on our nutrition, and a few of them include Alzheimer's disease and diabetes. And before we jump into all of this great information, I did want to recognize an expert in the field, Shannon Muse. She's a registered dietitian, and in preparing for today's webinar, I asked her to provide me with some additional resources. So I'm excited to share those resources with you today as we go throughout the webinar. And Shannon, if you're listening, thanks so much for all of the added input. So we're going to start by looking at the physical factors that influence nutrition in older adults. And as you can see here on the slide, there are many factors that can influence. The first is, I just mentioned the chronic illness. As our body ages and our internal systems begin to slow and change, illnesses can pop up that require a modification in what we can and cannot eat. As we age, energy levels may not be what they used to, and our metabolism slows. When older adults have a chronic illness, such as arthritis, they have continual pain, and it may affect their ability to shop for food and prepare food. Chronic illnesses may also suppress the appetite, even though these illnesses often require more nutrients for the body. So you can see why that would be a critical factor in nutrition. When it comes to issues with chewing and swallowing, dental problems can become an issue for older adults, and this can affect their nutrition. Poorly fitted dentures, cavities, gum problems, and so forth can affect the taste and ability to chew. And dry mouth is something to consider. This may be due to the side effects of medication or disease such as Parkinson's, so it may affect the older adult's eating habits and eating patterns. And then the absorption is a physical factor. The production of certain digestive enzymes and acids diminishes as we age, which then makes it harder for the body to break down protein and absorb key vitamins such as B12, folate, and sometimes even calcium and iron. When the body can't absorb those critical vitamins, it can impact the nervous system. And when the nervous system is impacted, it can lead to an unsteady gait, muscle weakness, mental alertness, and poor circulation. And then we have medications that really can influence a senior or an older adult's nutrition. It could suppress the appetite, alter the way the food tastes, and in some cases even cause nausea and vomiting. Multiple medications can have an even bigger effect. And antibiotics and meds that reduce cholesterol or blood pressure can change the way that food tastes. So this is certainly something we need to be mindful of, as we know the average senior is on multiple medications. And then hospitalizations occur in some older adults. And when those occur, the trauma and stress of being in the hospital can lead to a loss of appetite and weakness. After a hospital stay, an older adult might not be feeling up to cooking or grocery shopping. However, it's important for them to get proper nutrients as it helps with the recovery process. And if they're not getting those needed nutrients, it can actually make for a longer recovery process, and in some cases could lead to rehospitalization. So again, another key factor. And then we talked a little bit about this already, but taste and smell. Sensory loss is a normal part of aging, and when it comes to food, the comfort and enjoyment are so important. So not being able to taste the flavor or smell the food can lead to poor nutrition. Some medications can further decrease the sense of smell. And to compensate for this, some older adults may add sugar or salt to improve the taste, which could be harmful for their health. And finally, low activity levels. Loss of muscle and fat itself can cause a loss of appetite due to changes in the body chemistry. Not eating enough or not eating the right things can also cause a decrease in energy. When we are up and moving around or exercising, we're burning energy and calories, and as a result, we get hungry and we need nutrients to sustain us. So with older adults who have a lower level of activity, they're not burning as many calories and are less likely to have those same types of hunger sensations, or they might not need as many calories because they're not moving around as much. But it does not make nutrition any less important. In fact, it even makes it more important when there are low levels of activity, because if they're taking in less calories, they're exerting lower levels of energy. We want to make sure that the nutrients they are taking in are quality nutrients. So now that we've looked at the physical factors, I want to take a look at the social factors. Social factors may be easily overlooked when it comes to nutrition, but there are several factors that need to be considered. First of all is depression. There are many reasons why aging adults may be feeling low or depressed. It could be grief or loneliness due to losing a loved one, maybe a spouse, friends, adult children even. It could be illness-related or due to their lack of mobility. Depression and mood have an effect on your nutrition. If you're feeling depressed, you may overeat, seeking food as comfort, or you may lose your appetite and start to lose weight. Another social factor is limited income. Many older adults are on fixed incomes, which can cause them to choose lower-cost food options. And unfortunately, those lower-cost items might not be the healthiest options. Another thing to consider when it comes to a limited income is the cost of medications. Unfortunately, for some, medication costs are extremely high, and they might be faced with choosing between grocery shopping or their medications. And sometimes the medications win, sometimes the groceries win, but if one of those is not there, then it could lead to some significant health issues. And then restricted diets. Seniors are more likely than any other group to have dietary restrictions. It might be limiting salt, fat, sugar, and these limitations can be necessary for managing chronic conditions, but they can also be bland and unappealing. So older adults might be inclined to stop eating or might not get the proper nutrients needed. Those dietary restrictions can also be difficult, too, when going out to eat or attending social events, and this could cause them to refrain from attending those social activities. And one thing that's not listed on the slide here, but I would consider to be another social factor, is companionship and socialization. Not having someone to share mealtime with can really affect the older adult's eating habits. I know for myself personally, when I'm eating alone, I'm more likely to grab something quick. But if I know I'm eating with someone else, I'm going to put more time and energy into making the meal and then actually take time to sit down and enjoy it with that person. I often see similar patterns with older adults. If they're eating alone, they're more likely to heat up a frozen dinner or a can of soup, which is often packed with sodium. However, if they're eating with someone else, or if someone brings over a meal that they've prepared for them, they're more inclined to enjoy mealtime. So if the older adult is isolated, it may have significant effects on their nutrition. So we talked about the physical factors and the social factors. Now I want to go over some warning signs of poor nutrition that it's important for us as professionals to be aware of and for us to communicate to family caregivers. So I have 7 warning signs listed here on the slide. First is the loss of appetite. If an older adult has always been a hearty eater but no longer eats as they used to, it's time to find out why. It could be an underlying illness or problems with ill-fitted dentures or pain while chewing. It's important to visit with the person if you notice changes and schedule a doctor's visit if it's changed to an extreme. Mood changes can also be a warning sign. If their mood changes, it could be due to depression, again a common sign of poor nutrition, which we just talked about. And if a person is kind of out of it or flighty or spacey, it could be that they're not getting proper nutrition or that they're dehydrated. So again, some good things to keep your eye out for. A sudden weight fluctuation, especially losing or gaining 10 pounds within 6 months, could be a warning sign of poor nutrition. It may be hard to spot those 10 pounds, but you can look for clues in clothing choices and also keep an eye on how much spoiled food or leftovers are in the fridge at the end of each week. Another thing to keep an eye out for is skin tone. When older adults are eating properly, their skin should look healthy and well hydrated. Ashy or dull skin is a sign that there might be poor nutrition. Another warning sign is cognitive problems or a change in cognition. People who are living alone, they might forget to eat, especially if the older adult has cognitive impairments or some sort of dementia. This can lead to nutritional deficiency. They might forget to eat or think that they already ate, or they might overeat, forgetting that they just ate. So again, some things to just be aware of. And medications. When an older adult is taking more than 3 medications, these meds can influence both appetite and weight. It's important to review medications regularly with a pharmacist and physician and talk through the different side effects. When an older adult starts a new medication or discontinues a med, it's important to pay attention to their eating habits. If there's any sort of change, then the medication might be the cause. And the last one here to consider is lethargy. Another warning sign of this poor nutrition could be a recent illness or hospital stay, as they could cause the older adult to be more weak and tired. And when you're feeling that way, it's tough to get motivated to make a meal or go to the grocery store. So it's important for older adults to have the proper support after a recent hospital stay or during an illness to make sure that they're eating properly. Another cause of lethargy could be muscle weakness or even anemia caused by poor nutrition. If the person is more tired or sleeping more than usual, if they're experiencing frequent falls or more weakness when getting up out of a chair or up out of bed, this could be a sign that they're not getting the proper nutrition needed. So we know these different warning signs to look out for, but what happens if you do notice one of these warning signs? Let's take a look at what we can do if you suspect that there is an issue on the next slide. Encourage families to start talking to the individual. If we really listen and try to gain an understanding about what is going on in the older adult's life, we can figure out what might be contributing to or causing their poor eating habits. And it's more likely that we'll be able to help them generate solutions that will help to resolve the situation. Sometimes older adults might be reluctant to talk openly about some issues because they're embarrassed or feel that the issue is not that important. We need to be cognizant of that and need to take the time to discuss solutions for those issues. And then the older adult might be surprised to learn that some of their health issues might easily be cleared up with some simple dietary changes. Or, if it becomes more of a serious issue, definitely seek out the consult of a professional. But the very best thing we can do is have an open conversation with the older adult that we work with, and when appropriate, we need to involve those family caregivers. In the case of addressing nutritional needs of an older client, it might be appropriate to include family members if the person has cognitive impairments, if the family members are involved in the grocery shopping or meal preparation, or if the older adult wants them involved. The goal of involving family is always the same. We want to support the independence and quality of life of the older adult, but not compromise their independence. We still want to encourage them to do as much of the food prep and the meal planning as possible to help keep them engaged and, again, maintain that sense of independence. And I mentioned that it might be appropriate to consult a professional if there's an issue. So if it's medication or illness related, it's important that you get a doctor's visit scheduled. Bring along the medication list. Notify the physician of any signs that you're seeing of poor nutrition. And it might be helpful to also jot down what the older adult typically eats for each meal and what time of day that the older adult typically eats. This can help the doctor to get a better idea of the whole picture. The family might also want to visit with a registered dietitian or nutritionist. These nutrition professionals can help with meal planning or identify foods that can help with poor nutrition. And if the older adult has dietary restrictions, a nutritionist can help them navigate those restrictions. And these dietitians are usually available in the community. Some grocery store chains have them on staff, or you can check with the local hospital or clinic for an outpatient appointment. And lastly, if dental or job problems are to blame, suggest that the older adult make a visit to his or her dentist. In addition to consulting medical and nutritional professionals, there are many things that you can do to educate and support the older adult in eating properly and having better nutrition. So I'm now going to walk us through the nutritional guidelines for older adults. And my dietitian friend, Shannon, helped me to narrow down all of these nutritional guidelines, and I hope that I break it down in some easy to digest bullet points for you. But first, fruits and vegetables. Those are very important when it comes to older adults, and all of us really, because they're full of necessary vitamins and minerals. Each color provides unique nutrients, so encourage a variety of fruits and vegetables throughout the week. Even though fresh is the best choice for fiber, it's better to have frozen or canned fruits and vegetables than no vegetables or fruits at all. protein is also important to avoid muscle loss and nutritional deficiencies. Aim for a variety of protein in the week's menu plan. Tuna, salmon, those are especially good because of the high omega-3 fatty acids, giving positive benefits towards heart and brain health. Other good protein choices are lean beef, lean pork, turkey, and chicken. Try to include more plant sources of protein in the week as well, such as beans, lentils, and edamame or soybeans. For those adults that are recovering from illness or surgery, lean proteins are especially important to help aid in that recovery process. Whole grains, such as bread, pasta, rice, cereal, and snacks that are high in fiber, are good for older adults and full of nutrients. It's important to try to limit the white or refined grains if possible. So if the older adults used to eating white bread, suggest that they switch to a whole grain bread. And then milk and dairy foods provide the right amount of bone-building nutrients, specifically calcium, vitamin D, protein, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, vitamin B12, and zinc. For those who are lactose intolerant, choose a lactose-free milk and yogurt, and you can usually find those right in the dairy section next to the regular milk. There are some more nutritional guidelines here on the next slide. When it comes to fats, it's important to educate older adults about good fats versus bad fats. The fats from olive oil, avocados, or salmon, for example, are good fats that can help protect the body against heart disease by controlling the bad LDL cholesterol levels and raising the good HDL cholesterol levels. An easy tip to tell older adults is to switch from solid fats like butter or margarine to oils like olive oil when preparing food. And sweets and sugary drinks. This is a hard one because I know a lot of the older adults that I work with, they really love their sweets, and I'm guilty of that as well. But if we want to try to encourage older adults to limit those, especially if they're overweight. Fruit and yogurt are great alternatives. They're healthy and ways to satisfy the sweet tooth, and they also are packed with great nutrients. And then when it comes to sodium, a lot of older adults are told by their physician to limit the sodium, and this can really help prevent water retention and has a lot of other health benefits. And then fiber. This is one that we hear a lot about when it comes to older adults. And fiber is important because it can aid in helping the adults stay regular and help with their constipation issues. It's good to get about 20 to 30 grams of fiber a day, and some nutrient-rich options for healthy fiber are listed there on the screen. It's important to note that fluids are especially important with increased fiber intake. Fluids play a key role in helping digestion and all of the systems in our bodies working. But we'll talk more about hydration in a little bit. First, a few more nutritional guidelines on this next slide. An important part of a healthy lifestyle is certainly the nutrition, but it also involves regular physical activity. So it's important for older adults to participate in regular activity about 30 minutes, 3 times a week. Of course, the older adults should consult with a doctor before starting physical activity, especially if they're not currently active. And it's also important to discuss with a clinician to see if there are any additional supplements or vitamins that are needed for specific health needs. A lot of older adults will take fish oil, vitamin D, calcium supplements. So again, important to consult with a clinician before taking any new vitamins or supplements. And there's that fluid again. I'm probably going to talk about it 3 or 4 more times because it's really important. And it helps with constipation issues, and it just helps keep our bodies working properly. And these guidelines, they all maybe look familiar to us, and that's because this is just good general healthy living guidelines. Everyone could adhere to these guidelines, but when it comes to older adults, it's important for them to have the proper nutrition, not only for their body, but also to help keep their mind sharp and extend their quality of life. So now that we reviewed some of the special nutritional needs of older adults, we're going to look more specifically at those hydration guidelines that I've been talking so much about. Dehydration has been associated with many older adult health issues, including confusion, impaired cognition, falling, constipation. So it's important to communicate to older adults that they should not wait until they're thirsty to drink fluid. Instead, think of drinking water as a prescription. Drink 8 ounces of water with morning pills. It's a great way to start the day. And actually, Dr. Connie Bales at the Duke University Medical Center recommends that older adults drink about 6 glasses of water per day, especially for those in those warmer climates or during warmer months of the year. So encourage a full glass of liquids at each meal or snack time. It's important to always keep water close. Maybe there's a special bottle that's easy to use and carry. I know some of the older adults that I work with, they'll use a walker, one with a bench, and inside the little bench seat, they always have a bottle of water handy. Sometimes older adults find a large glass of water to be intimidating. So instead, you could try using a small juice glass or Dixie cup and refill it frequently. You will likely drink more water than you realize if you drink them in small, manageable portions. You could also enhance the water, a splash of grape juice or cranberry juice. You could add fruit like lemon, lime. You could even add herbs such as fresh mint. Those types of additives are low in calories but can add some good flavor and encourage more water drinking. And you can even try sparkling mineral water for something a little bit different. Sometimes keeping a filtered water pitcher in the refrigerator is a good way to always have cold water on hand. And you can also encourage water-based fruits and vegetables to help increase the fluid intake. Watermelon and cucumbers have more water content compared to other fruits and vegetables. You can also encourage unsweetened tea and coffee. Those can contribute to the fluid intake. In the past, we thought that caffeine led to dehydration, but we have since found that it does not necessarily dehydrate the body, even though caffeine can cause more frequent urination. So 2 to 3 cups of unsweetened coffee or tea a day is perfectly fine. And then milk is another great way to stay hydrated, and it's full of nutrients. Same with 100% fruit juice. About a cup a day is fine, unless the older adult is diabetic or pre-diabetic. So talk to the dietitian or the doctor about whether or not the older adult should be drinking juice every day. Oftentimes, for some older adults, they're reluctant to drink fluids throughout the day because of their incontinence issues. So this may prevent the older adult from drinking their fluids and may increase the likelihood of dehydration. So if this is a concern, encourage them to drink fluids earlier in the day to avoid frequent bathroom trips at night. And then it's also important to avoid those sweetened soft drinks or sports drinks. Instead, encourage the older adult to replace them with iced tea or a flavored seltzer water. So these are all great tips on how to keep an older adult hydrated. But when it comes to preparing and cooking meals, that's an equally important component of this whole nutritional intake. So I want to give you some tips on how to keep the older adult involved in the meal planning process and the meal preparation process. So we're going to look at that on the next slide. So here are some tips, and having all of this good food and all of these nutrient-rich foods in the fridge doesn't do the older adult any good if they're not enjoying it and eating it. And a nutrition expert at the University of Maryland suggests making mealtime a happy event. Sometimes we focus so much on what we can't eat and don't give enough attention to the foods we can eat and to what food represents for us. Food is the core of our lives. As I mentioned earlier, our culture is kind of obsessed with food. People are taking pictures of it, posting it on Instagram. There's these little food videos on Facebook now. It's a part of almost every social gathering we have. We're going out to eat. We're inviting friends over for food. All of our holidays have a big meal involved. So it's really about the aroma, the color, the feel, the texture, the socialization. These are all what makes food so enjoyable. So make the food fun, make the preparation fun, make the event itself, the meal, the eating, a fun event. It's important, though, to avoid those empty calories, those foods that come from solid fats or added sugars and that really have no nutrients. So sodas, sweets, chips, those types of snacky foods that aren't that healthy for you. For those that have some gum or mouth issues, soups are a great way to get a lot of needed nutrients but require less chewing. And you can find all sorts of soup recipes out there, and you can even make them low sodium if you're making them yourself. You can chock them full of protein and vegetables. A lot of great variety in soup options. They can also help with hydration too. But when it comes to the meals, you do want to try to mix it up. You don't have to adhere to the guidelines of, these foods are breakfast foods. Sometimes it's fun to have breakfast for dinner. I remember as a kid, my mom would make it every now and then, especially when my dad was out of town and we thought it was fun. So, you could make pancakes and bacon for dinner or have tuna on pumpernickel for breakfast. I mean, there really are no rules when it comes to getting some variety in the day, throughout the day, as to the variety of food that we can eat. And then variety is the spice of life. So we need to encourage to families and older adults to be preparing foods that keep the older adult interested. So if the food is tasting too bland, suggest that they try some natural flavor enhancers like herbs and spices. And you can even use olive oils and vinegars, garlic, onion, cinnamon, cloves, ginger, lemon, lime. Those can really give foods some pizzazz while, again, low on calories. And a lot of those spices and herbs also have great health benefits. So the goal is to move towards the right direction and not, of course, be perfect in our eating habits right away. So if we can make these small steps of maybe replacing the salt and the sugar with some more spices, maybe a little lemon juice, those are some small, easy, manageable steps. And then another great idea is to put together some healthy snacks into small baggies, maybe nuts, seeds, dry fruit, some low-fat cheeses, fresh vegetables and fruits, rather than buying the less healthy and more expensive prepackaged processed type snacks. And I know a lot of older adults I work with, they like to snack throughout the day. So if they have these easy to grab, maybe baby carrots in a little Ziploc bag or cheese that's already cut up into portion sizes, they're more likely to grab those types of fresh snacks if they're readily available. And then what also can be helpful is batch cooking. So for individuals on a budget, they can make a larger meal. And I know for a lot of older adults, they're really only eating 1 to 2 servings if there's a couple involved in each meal. So you could make, a casserole or a soup and then divide it up into little smaller portions and then freeze and date them. And then they can pull those meals out later and eat them at a later date. Another idea is planned leftovers. So for instance, if you're making a whole chicken, one night you could have chicken and vegetables. The next night you could turn that chicken into a soup, those types of things, or a pasta dish. So again, these little tips, but planning and organizing can be key to good nutrition and good nutritional habits. So we know now some tips on cooking, but grocery shopping can also be a challenge for some older adults. So we're going to talk a little bit more about grocery shopping here on the next slide. So again, we want the goal to be that families are helping with mealtime and preparation, but not necessarily doing everything for the person if they're still able to contribute to the mealtime process. So it's important to keep the older adult involved, allowing them not only to have a say in the foods that they eat, but also involving them in the importance of good nutrition and letting them have the opportunity to have a stake in the game to help make some of the nutritional choices. And as basic as this may sound, many people do not know how to make trips to the grocery store more organized and productive. Of course, this is especially true if someone has never done the grocery shopping or meal planning before. In the spousal situation, in a lot of cases, the wife would be in charge of cooking, grocery shopping, that sort of thing. So if she passes away, the husband may now be in charge of those duties and may not really know where everything is in the grocery store or how to make it a proper meal, that type of thing. So here are some tips that you can share with an older adult and their family about how to improve grocery shopping. And again, these sound basic, but if you put yourself in the shoes of an older adult that might not have ever had this role before, a little bit of guidance can really go a long way. So first, we want to suggest that they make a list. They can begin by figuring out what they want to eat that week and then turn that into a list. This pre-planning can really help reduce time and then the money spent on food shopping and really cut down on the number of times that you have to go to the store. We've all probably heard this one before, and I've probably experienced the consequences of doing so, but it's best to shop when you're not hungry. If you shop when you're hungry, you're more tempted to buy things that aren't on your list or things that you wouldn't normally buy. So try to either eat before you go or make sure that you're not hungry while shopping. And for older adults on a budget, clipping coupons and organizing them at home can help when you get to the store, making sure that you have all the coupons that you need. And then also sign up for the grocery store bonus card or discount card. This can help the older adult reap additional savings, or maybe it's fuel saver type points that they can use towards gas. And some stores, I know one in my community, every Wednesday they have a 5% senior citizen discount. So you might even encourage them to see if their store has a discount for older adults. And then we want to suggest that they shop the perimeter of the store. That's where the most fresh, healthy foods are located. The inner aisles have more of the prepared or processed foods. And then we also want to encourage them to try the store brands. The store brands are usually cheaper and just as good as the name brand. So that's another way that they can save a little extra money. And then we want to encourage them to try new foods or ethnic alternatives. A great suggestion is to try at least one new food a week. And this has gotten easier in the recent years because many grocery stores label different aisles with different or group the different ethnic foods together, or maybe some unusual fruits and vegetables. They'll put a nice label up next to them with unique ways on how to prepare those new or unique fruits and veggies. So, you're never too old to try something new. So we should encourage that in the older adults we work with. And after sharing these suggestions, we might also want to recommend having some healthy staples on hand. Those things that are always good to have on the shopping list or always good to keep in the pantry. So we're going to go over those on the next slide. And I know I've gone through a lot of these different food groups, but I wanted to get a little more specific on foods to encourage. So as you can see of the fruits, pears are especially high in fiber. Bananas, a great source of potassium. Strawberries, a great source of fiber, vitamin C, those types of things. And blueberries, those are a great source of nutrients. And they also have a lot of great antioxidants. So studies have showed eating a cup of blueberries a day can improve memory function, cognition, in those especially with Alzheimer's and other dementias. So some great foods to have. But you want to be sure if you're doing canned fruit to avoid those fruits that are canned in juice or light syrup. You want to go for that more 100% juice to avoid that added sugar. And then when it comes to vegetables, here on the next slide, all of these veggies are low in calorie and have a long list of valuable vitamins and minerals. Rich They're all rich sources of zinc as well as protein, fiber, vitamins A, C, E, and K, vitamin B, folate, calcium, iron, magnesium. I could go on and on. It sounds like I'm reading the side of a multivitamin bottle. So don't be afraid to encourage these vegetables, to try these vegetables, and add flavor to them. Add a little olive oil and roast them or saute them. Add some herbs and make them tasty and enjoyable. And then peppers are low in calcium and full of vitamins. And then carrots, they're rich in beta-carotene and fiber as well. So all of these add nutrients to our bodies, which again is so important. And then when it comes to protein, I've talked quite a bit about protein, but it's really important for older adults to get an adequate amount of protein each day to help maintain their muscle mass, and especially if they're recovering from any sort of illness or hospitalization, protein can be really key in helping to keep energy levels and provide that needed nutrients to help them recover faster. And all lean meats can really fit into a healthy meal plan. Try to have protein with each meal. It also may be good to get a little extra protein in at snack time, especially in those that aren't getting enough protein. And then dairy. When it comes to dairy, we want to encourage about 3 servings a day. Milk is full of nutrients, and even a glass of chocolate milk is better than no milk at all. But if we can encourage older adults to drink the straight milk, that's much better in terms of the sugar intake. And then Greek yogurt has more protein per serving than other types of yogurt, which can be, again an added benefit and help that older adult get that extra protein. And then yogurt also has great probiotics that are good for our gut health. So Activia yogurt is an example of one that's especially rich in those probiotics that could aid in constipation if that is an issue for older adults. And then finally, grains. I talked earlier about eating those whole grains and avoiding those refined white breads, that sort of thing. And those whole grain breads really are increased in the amount of fiber that they have. And our supermarkets today are full of, multigrain pastas or breads, tortillas, you name it, they're out there. So there's lots of great healthy options that seniors can use throughout their meal planning to create some good variety. And oatmeal, again, is another good one, and some brown rice. Again, good grain options that are healthier than the white rice, that sort of thing. And for some older adults, they might not have family that live nearby, or they might be currently doing things independently but need some additional help. So if they are no longer able to get to the grocery store or shop alone, there's a number of possibilities for help depending on their living situation, finances, and needs. So first, many grocery stores today deliver groceries. They have a delivery service, and oftentimes there's either a minimal fee, maybe a $5 delivery fee, or if you order up to a certain amount, the delivery fee is waived. So you want to check your local grocery store. You can search for it on the internet, give them a call to see if they will accept orders over the phone or if they accept them via the internet. Another option to suggest is that they have a family member, friend, neighbor, maybe a teenager down the street, college student, to see if they'd be willing to do some of the grocery shopping for the older adult in exchange for sharing a meal. So this is a great way that solves 2 issues. One, buying the groceries for the older adult, and then providing that companionship for the older adult at mealtime. So sometimes older adults have trouble finding solutions to their situation. So if we can be creative in resolving these issues, it can really help them in maintaining good nutrition. And we need to let them know that it's okay to ask for help. And even the family caregiver, it's okay to ask for help. So even if there's family around and the family is working and taking care of their kids and aren't able to get to the grocery store for the older adult, or get over there every day to prepare a meal, they could always hire a professional home care service. These services may provide meal preparation, shopping. They could even provide companionship during the meal. And then also, Meals on Wheels is a great option, which can provide nutritious meals to people who are homebound or disabled or would otherwise be unable to maintain their dietary needs. And these programs have really been a godsend for decades. And then in an effort to both cover the cost and maintain the older adult's sense of dignity, these programs may charge a small fee based on the individual's ability to pay. And to find a Meals on Wheels program, you can reach out to your local area agency on aging, and to find one near you, you can go to n4a.org, and you can look up a Meals on Wheels program that might be near you. And then if it's companionship that would make meals more enjoyable for your loved one, there's a number of options to consider. You could contact your local senior center, YMCA, congregation at church, or religious community, high school, and then ask if they have a senior meal program. You might also encourage them to invite friends over or get a group together to share a potluck or have dinners on a rotating basis. Maybe it's even coffee or breakfast. Or maybe the family chooses to have family dinner together every Sunday. So again, some creative ways that we can get these older adults some additional help. And I mentioned that there are really two chronic conditions that I want to focus on for this presentation, but chronic conditions can add some additional challenges. So for those with diabetes, it can, again, prevent some nutritional obstacles. Older adults who have diabetes, there is a larger presence of those living with diabetes in old age, and the risk of developing type 2 diabetes can increase with age. So those with type 2 diabetes, their insulin levels really are affected by what they're eating. And unlike a diet that involves what you can't eat, nutritional management of diabetes usually involves dietary changes that balance moderation, carbohydrate control, and healthy eating choices. So people with diabetes need to focus on foods that are high in fiber, they're nutrient dense. This includes virtually all plant foods, most dairy products, lean meats, poultry, and fish. And diabetics, they need to keep highly processed foods that are full of refined flour and sugar to a minimum. So the internet is loaded with a lot of helpful information for senior nutrition. Diabetes.org has some great tools and resources. And the Diabetes Association has a great guide for those 55 plus. And some of their tips include starting meals with a salad or broth-based soup, choosing vegetables and fruits as side dishes instead of French fries, and then avoiding buffets and sharing dessert. So again, these can be some easy tips that those with diabetes can implement. And then there is another condition that could pose some challenges, and that's the onset of dementia or Alzheimer's. So eating and drinking habits may change with dementia, and we must encourage families to stick to routines to ensure success. So for example, having breakfast at the same time every day. So we want to also be sure to get the older adult to drink enough liquids and stay hydrated. And this might be difficult, especially as the disease progresses, and sometimes swallowing can become a problem. And also, the use of appliances can become a concern as memory begins to change. They might accidentally leave the stove on or the oven on. So when the person with Alzheimer's or disease, while they're changing or the disease is progressing, family needs to reevaluate from time to time as the disease progresses. Is my loved one still safe preparing their own food, or do we need to change maybe the more solid foods into easier to eat foods, finger foods, or do we need to switch to more liquids because they're having issues with swallowing? And some other things to consider is the way that you set the plate on the table. Plates with patterns or tablecloths with patterns, those can be very busy designs that could confuse them. So if you're able to use solid color plates, that helps them see the food on the plate and helps them to be able to process what is food versus what's pattern. And also, it might be a good idea to set one food in front of them at a time. For example, maybe set the soup down first, and then bring the chicken, and then a side dish. It just helps them to focus on the one food in front of them. And you can create a contrast on the plate. Sometimes if they like to eat, rice and chicken, those are some kind of blandly colored foods. So if you put them on a white plate, it might not be as appealing, but if you put them on an orange plate, they really stand out more. So use that contrasting colors to help engage them in the eating process. And then also modeling. If as the disease progresses, they might forget how to use the fork. They might see it there on the table and not know to pick it up and use it. But if they see you pick up your fork and start to eat, that modeling effect can help trigger their memory. So that's another tip. And then it's also important to understand their food preferences and routines. So if you know that their favorite flavor of ice cream is vanilla, that can really help in the food preparation process of the meal planning. And it's also important to still give them choice when it comes to their meals if they're able to make a decision, but try to limit those choices. So you could say, it's time for lunch. Would you like a sandwich or soup for lunch? Or I'm making you a sandwich. Would you like turkey or ham? And sometimes you might need to physically show them the items too. So again, helping to keep them engaged in this mealtime and provide some sense of independence still, even though they are losing their memories and they are losing some of their physical abilities. Again, helps them hang on to that sense of independence. So next I'm going to pull up some recommended resources. You can read through them here, but I know I kind of ran over. I apologize. I have so many good pieces of information to share, but I'll leave that recommended resources slide up on the screen while I answer a few questions. So Steve, I will send it back to you.
All right. Thanks very much, Lakeland. It is time for the Q&A portion of the session, everybody. So if you have any questions here for Lakeland, please send them in. Lakeland, let's jump right into it here. As you mentioned, we're running a little bit short on time. First question, do you have any tips for environmental factors we can be aware of to encourage better intake, such as room temperature, music, lighting, etc.?
That's a great question. I think that it really kind of comes down to the individual. I did have a client who she had Alzheimer's, and her caregiver was having difficulty getting her to eat. And when talking with her family, we realized that she loved to go out to eat, but she really couldn't do that anymore based on her mobility limitations. And so the caregiver set up the table to look like a restaurant. So she put out a white tablecloth and some candles, and she turned on some music and set the table really nice. And so that really got the individual engaged in eating because she felt like she was out at a restaurant. She felt like it was a fancy event. So I would certainly say if you know that the individual really likes a certain type of music, give it a try. I say you can try everything at least once, and if it's successful, continue to do it again. And if it's not, maybe try something else. But especially when it comes to someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, one thing that might work today may not work tomorrow, or even if it works at lunch, might not work at dinner. That doesn't mean you can't try it again a couple days later. So I would certainly try different techniques, such as the ones that they mentioned in the question, and see how it goes. It might not work for everyone, but it might help others.
Okay, great. Next question. Is it healthy if your client wants to eat the same thing every day but eats well?
That is a good question. I would I would say the fact that they are eating well is good, and they're getting in proper nutrients and nutrition. It would be great if they could get a little bit of variety in the day, because as I mentioned, different fruits and vegetables come with different sources of nutrients. So if we can get them even one day a week or one meal a week to switch up, instead of pears, try strawberries, or instead of carrots, try broccoli. Maybe introduce one new vegetable, and maybe in addition to what they're currently eating. So if they have chicken and broccoli every day for lunch, maybe introduce a salad in addition to that broccoli, or introduce carrots to see if they'd be willing to try it. Some individuals might stick to a certain type of meal because they think that they don't like other fruits and vegetables, but as we age, our taste buds change. So they might find that they do like strawberries now, whereas maybe growing up and as a kid they didn't like them, so they really have just avoided them their whole life. So if we can encourage them to try something new, that is great. But I would say if they're getting the nutrients that they need and they like what they're eating, if you try to introduce foods and you're not successful, okay, don't try to kill yourself, or don't try to overexert your energy trying to get them to eat a variety. I would say eating is good if they're getting enough calories, enough protein, and enough nutrients. That's great. And if they aren't getting a certain kind of nutrient, consult the doctor about a supplement that they could use or introduce to their medication regime that could aid in getting that needed extra nutrients. So that's a great question.
Okay, can squeeze another quick one in here for you, Lakeland. How beneficial are the canned nutrition drinks? A lot of seniors, like you were mentioning, have certain physical issues or whatever, and they switch them over to products like Ensure or Boost. So how beneficial are those actually?
Well, I would say I haven't read up much on the long-term effects of that, but they do have some great needed nutrients, and especially if the individual can no longer take in solid foods, or maybe they have a cognitive impairment and they just refuse to eat any sort of solid food. Those types of nutrient-rich drinks are better than nothing. But when it comes to nutrition, if the individual is still able to take in, proteins, vegetables, fruits, grains, those natural food sources are always going to be the best option. But if they're not able to take in those types of products or those types of nutrients, then the supplemental products, I would say, are providing the needed nutrition. So I'm not a physician, so I would say make sure to consult their physician to make sure that it's right for them. But again, nutrients and calories, especially in older adults, is better than nothing in a lot of cases. Great question.
All right. Well, Lakeland, we have just about run out of time here today, unfortunately, and it's time for us to wrap up. But I want to thank you for joining us today and for a great presentation.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.